Thanks for joining us. This is the World News at 12 from Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon of First Our Top Stories. Nigerian Senate passes Electoral Act Amendment Bill after clash and stormy debate on electronic transmission. Lent and Ramadan begin today in Nigeria and across the globe. Peter Obi, Sanwo-Olu and Khan felicitate Nigerians as Lent's Ramadan begin. Dangote signs $400 million equipment deal to fast-track refinery expansion. Outside Nigeria, US says meaningful progress made as Ukraine talks enter second day. And in sports, Mourinho and Benfica under fire after Real Madrid's Vinicius alleges racism. Those are our top stories. Details coming up now. First on the news, the Nigerian Senate on Tuesday passed the Electoral Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2026 following hours of intense deliberations, procedural debates and a heated row over Clause 60, which deals with the electronic transmission of election results. Proceedings took a dramatic turn when Senator Eyinaya Abaribe of ADC Abia South demanded a division on Clause 60, triggering a rowdy session in the upper chamber. However, the demand immediately split the chamber and exposed deep divisions among lawmakers over the failure of electronic voting processes, over the future rather of electronic voting processes in Nigeria. Senate President Godswill Akpabio said he was under the impression that the demand for a division on the clause had earlier been withdrawn. His position, however, was fiercely contested by opposition senators who insisted that the issue was still alive and must be subjected to a formal vote. Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin intervened, citing Order 52 6 of the Senate standing orders, and argued that it will be procedurally out of order to revisit any provision already ruled out by the Senate President. His submission only fueled further uproar, during which Senator Sunday Karimi was seen briefly confronting Abaribe on the Senate floor. Akpabio in his remarks suggested that Abaribe's insistence on a division was aimed at publicly demonstrating his position on electronic transmission of results to Nigerians. He nonetheless sustained the point of order, after which Abaribe rose in protest and was urged to formally move his motion. Rising under Order 72-1, Abaribe specifically called for a division on Clause 63, objecting to the provision that allows Form ECA 8 to be relied upon where electronic transmission of results fails. He proposed the outright removal of the clause permitting manual transmission of results in the event of network failure, arguing that such a loophole could undermine electoral transparency. During the division, Akpabio directed senators who supported the provision to stand, followed by those opposed to it. 15 opposition senators rose against the clause, while 55 senators voted in favor, effectively retaining the controversial provision. Similarly, former Special Advisor on Political Matters to Bola Tinubu, Hakeem Baba Ahmed, has lent his voice to the controversy that have trailed the Senate passage of Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The Senate on Tuesday passed the Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2026. Before the passage, there was a rowdy session as the upper chamber resumed proceedings with a demand for division of over Clause 60 raised by Senator Eyinaya Abaribe. The Senate President Godswill Akpabio stated that he believed the demand had previously been withdrawn, but several opposition senators immediately objected to the claim. Baba Ahmed criticized the Senate position. Take a listen.
Attempted to do to provide for two methods. The ECNA what is the non-digital option, that is transmission of results in real time, alongside the other method that says you record the result at ECSA, okay, the non-electronic, non-real-time option. Some people say it's manual, not entirely manual, because even when you fill the form ECSA, you still have to transmit it by electronic means. But now, what the Senate appears to have done, what the National Assembly, is to say, okay, we will give INEC a choice. You can use two methods. You can use the electronic real-time transmission of results, where you have the network, where you have the power, or you can choose to use the manual process if you don't have telecommunication. I think that what the Senate has done is a little bit insincere. If, with a year to go, if there are shortfalls in what is required to make sure that at least 95% of the votes can be transmitted in real time to INEC from the polling unit, this government has a duty and an obligation to provide what is needed. To give INEC discretion and say, choose what method you want, I think it's dishonest, and it is not a solution to the problem. In fact, my view, since you asked, is that we should have only one way. It should be real-time transmission of results as they finish counting and declared at the polling unit. That is the only way. If you do this, there is already an infrastructure on the ground, and there are countries in the world where you can actually go and study what are the pitfalls, how their system works. You can look at the technology in INEC now and see the degree to which you can improve it to a point where you will not have a lot of these fears that people are hiding behind, to say, no, don't just simply take the risk of having the real-time transmission. I was secretary of INEC in 2003, and we faced a real challenge when we attempted to introduce the electronic voters roll. People told us, you can't do that. You have 69 million manually registered people, you don't have the technology, and we insisted on doing that, and we did. It was the first time that an INEC produced an electronic voters roll, voters register. Every person who was registered, we had his fingerprints or her fingerprints, we had their face, we had the particulars of the person, and they had only one vote, only one card. In the past, before then, you could have one person who is registered in 10 different places. We computerized the system. We removed 6 million multiple registrations, 6 million, all in time for the elections. These things are not impossible. When you see politicians cutting corners and saying, don't take risks, don't take risks. If the APC's fortune and the APC's interest lies in providing for real-time transmission,
Millions of Muslims and Christians around the world are beginning observance of Ramadan and Lent today, marking periods of spiritual reflection, fasting, and devotion in their respective faiths. For Muslims, Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, is a time of fasting from dawn to sunset, increased prayers, charity, and self-discipline. In Nigeria, President of the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, NSCIA, Muhammad Sahad Abubakar III, had confirmed the crescent signaling at the start of Ramadan 2026 has been cited. According to a statement by Sambo Junaidu, the chairman of the Advisory Committee on Religious Affairs of the Sultanate Council, yesterday, the leader of the Muslims in Nigeria said verified reports of moon sightings were received from various parts of the country and were carefully authenticated. Around the world, Christians observing Lent will also mark a 40-day period of prayer, penance, and self-denial leading up to Easter Sunday, with the observance of Ash Wednesday to commence the Lenten season. Saudi Arabia on Tuesday officially announced the sighting of the crescent moon, marking the beginning of Ramadan 1447. With the Hilal confirmed, the holy month of Ramadan begins on Wednesday, that's today, with Taraweeh prayers held after the Isha prayer on Tuesday night. The Catholic Pontiff Pope Leo XIV has, however, urged Christians across the world to abstain from words that offend and hurt others as the Lenten season begins. In his 2026 Lenten message released ahead of Ash Wednesday and cited on the Vatican website, the pontiff described refraining from hurtful language as a very practical and frequently unappreciated form of abstinence. Pope Leo explained that every journey of conversion begins by allowing God's word to touch the heart, leading to renewed commitment to fellow Christians and Christ in his passion, death, and resurrection. The Pope has stressed the importance of listening both to God and to others, noting that authentic relationships grow from attentiveness. Meanwhile, Nigerian leaders have extended goodwill to both Christians and Muslims as the Christian season of Lent and the Muslim holy month of Ramadan begin simultaneously on Wednesday, February 18, 2026. In a statement shared on Wednesday, the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, described the concurrence of Lent and Ramadan as a rare spiritual convergence to cherish and revere. He noted that for the first time in many years, both sacred seasons begin on the same day, saying, quote, "The rare coincidence is far more than a meeting of dates. It is a powerful symbol of shared sacrifice, reflection, and the possibility of national renewal at a time when our collective identity has been strained by ineffective governance." End of quote. Obi highlighted that both seasons are marked by fasting, prayer, and thanksgiving, calling it a double fast, a divine invitation to transcend differences and discover shared humanity. He urged Nigerians to use the period not only for prayer but also for action. Governor of Lagos State Babajide Sanwo-Olu extended his greetings to Muslim faithful in the state, saying, quote, "As the holy month begins, I want to personally wish all Muslim faithfuls in Lagos a time filled with peace and reflection. I pray that the week ahead bring you strength, clarity, and abundant blessings. Let us continue to keep one another in our prayers." End of quote. The Christian Association of Nigeria (CAN) has called on inclusive governance, effective policy implementation, and national unity as Christians in Nigeria and across the world observe Ash Wednesday. CAN, in a press statement signed by its president, Archbishop Daniel Oko, on Wednesday in Abuja, explained that the season presents an opportunity for reflection on the state of the nation and the role citizens and leaders must play in shaping Nigeria's future. Khan noted that the country is currently facing significant social and economic challenges, including rising living costs, unemployment concerns, and persistent security issues affecting communities. According to the statement, Nigeria is passing through a challenging period. Many households are struggling with the rising cost of living, uncertain job opportunities, and daily economic pressures. Dangote Group has signed a $400 million construction equipment agreement with XCMG Construction Machinery Co. Limited, one of China's leading manufacturers of construction machinery, and a move set to accelerate the expansion of the Dangote petroleum refinery and petrochemicals from 650,000 barrels per day to 1.4 million barrels per day, positioning it to become the largest refinery in the world. The agreement will enable the group to acquire an additional wide range of advanced construction equipment to support ongoing and forthcoming projects across refining, petrochemicals, agriculture, and large-scale infrastructure development. The new equipment will complement existing assets deployed for the refinery expansion, which is expected to be completed within 3 years. Beyond refining, the expansion program will see polypropylene production increase from 900,000 metric tons per annum to 2.4 million metric tons per annum. Urea capacity in Nigeria will be tripled from 3 million to 9 million metric tons per annum, in addition to the 3 million metric tons per annum capacity in Ethiopia, strengthening the group's position as the largest urea producer globally. Production capacity for linear alkyl benzene lab will also be increased to 400,000 metric tons per annum, positioning the group as the largest producer in Africa and strengthening supply to the detergent and cleaning agent manufacturing industry. Additional base oil production capacity also forms part of the broader expansion program. In a statement, the group described the agreement as a strategic investment aimed at deepening its construction footprint and accelerating its ambition to build a $100 billion enterprise by 2030. Dangote Group is currently accelerating expansion and regional market development as it advances towards its long-term vision of building a $100 billion enterprise by 2030. You are currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll go straight to our analysis segment where we have Dele Fanimo. He's our in-house analyst, of course, with years of experience as a broadcaster and a journalist, and according to him, as he will say, rather, a reporter and in the media industry. Mr. Fanimo, thank you very much for joining us on the News at 12.
Thanks for having me on this show.
So the last couple of weeks, obviously, the major topic for discussion has been the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, specifically as it relates to real-time electronic transmission of results. And of course, the National Assembly, the Senate, to be precise, has exacerbated that national discourse with what happened yesterday. There were clashes, there were stormy debates on the electronic transmission of results. At the end of the day, the results still remained the same, which is the position the Senate took some days ago, which is not making the electronic transmission of result mandatory. Instead, leave it to the discretion of INEC, where there is no internet. The collation becomes manual. What's your take on that?
Thank you very much. You see, it's quite unfortunate that I will go in a circle. We have a movement without motion.
Yeah.
And it's quite unfortunate that most things we do in this country are done haphazardly. An example is what you see now. Nigeria waiting with bated breath for FIFA to sanction Democratic Republic of Congo for us to go to World Cup.
And that's not even a guarantee. We'll have to go through the international playoff phase.
That is it. So now this is what we do most of the time in Nigeria. And this is not an exception. You recall that last week, when we were here, I don't know if it was you or another anchor person, I told this person that this Senate, they will have their way. They will ambush Nigerians. And that is what has happened. So the protest had gone in vain, after all. Even the House of Reps that tended to be on the side of the masses,
the people,
changed gear.
Tune.
And today, they are in unison against Nigeria's wish and for their selfish interests. Now, you recall that I also said it last week that, look, these people, they are major beneficiaries of this flawed electoral process.
Yeah.
And you think they would want to remove feeding bottle from their mouth. It's not going to happen. And that's what they have demonstrated at the end of the day. They deliberately laid ambush, and it will take a while, mark my word again, it will take a while for the president to accede to that bill. For another round of ambush, which I will tell you. Now, there are lessons in what has happened in the last 2 weeks. One of the lessons is that if Nigerians are united, we can extract maximum gains from the National Assembly. Two, it has exposed Nigerians to the shenanigans of the National Assembly and to the fact that in the next election, be sure of who is representing you, who you are surrendering your sovereignty to from your constituency. If you know that this man, his antecedents, his pedigree does not suggest that he's going to that hollow chamber to represent your interest, please, whatever he gives to you, please don't vote for him or her. Now, 109 represents 200 and maybe 30 million people. And are they on the side of the masses? No. Two, the civil society organizations now know that they need to work harder on mobilization and education, because an educated mind is not easy to throw around.
True.
It's also very clear now that if Nigeria is going to move forward or otherwise, it is the bedrock of that movement is the National Assembly. Look at what a private concern is doing. Expanding a project of $20 billion to $100 billion in 3 years with maximum gain. The full capital utilization of that 20 billion has dropped our exchange rate by almost 100 naira. Today, naira exchange is about 1,300. Just for the singular effort of one private person. Then our government is not doing anything towards that direction of at least bringing down exchange rate, which is also concomitant to our purchasing power in terms of naira and kobo.
Especially for a country that does a whole lot of imports.
You know, now, because we have been partially, mark my word, partially, weaned off petrol imports, now naira is gaining strength. Now, fast forward to the next 3 years, when we will now be producing more than we require in terms of fertilizer. Imagine the gain of not importing components for making detergent and soap. Dangote is going to start supplying. So what that tells you is there is possibility of the companies like Procter and Gamble, like PZ and all that are divested from this country to come back, because one of the basic elements of production is nearness to raw material.
Yes.
So the National Assembly have always advocated that anybody that wants to protest, don't go and disturb any governor when it comes to national matter. Go to the National Assembly. Don't even go to Aso Rock, because Aso Rock will say this is the law, and who is capable of making sure that this law is reversed for the masses. It is the National Assembly.
But indirectly, you know, the National Assembly are dancing to the tune of the
That's where I'm
executive.
coming to. Now, National Assembly will dance to the tune of the executive, in as much as we Nigerians don't take that power from them. And that power from them, taking that power from them, is for us to have coordinated, peaceful, consistent protests. Coordinated, what I mean by coordinated, you don't just go to the National Assembly and somebody is talking from left and somebody is talking from right, but there should be a coordination. Then consistency. You need to be consistent and make sure that for the optics, whoever is going to lead such protest must be weaned off ethnic bigotry, religious extremism, and other vices.
Now, let us stay with that, though. I took one word from what you said in the last few statements, that if we will be together, if there'll be, if we all agree. Now, Nigerians, whether we like it or not, don't even agree on what is going on. We are different, obviously, and because of our differences, the way we reason is different. Now, we're talking about ethnic and religious divide now. It's not exactly...
It's pronounced now.
Exactly. Not exactly putting the whole of Nigerians, giving
together,
us one voice. For now, because the president is Yoruba, there are some Yorubas that their sense of ethnicity
is declaring their sense of judgment.
It's declaring their sense of judgment. And because of that, even if them themselves, they're hungry, the fact that they
want to protect their own.
Exactly. The fact that they identify with the tribe of the president or identify with the tribe of the vice president is bigger than their hungry stomach. While you have some Yorubas that those ones that they don't care who
is in Aso Rock,
who is that Aso Rock, their sense of nationality and the fact that there's not enough money in their pocket is bigger than where the president or the vice president is from. And that's obviously, let's not talk about the ones that are directly or indirectly benefiting from this administration. That one is obvious that the money they go to the bank smiling. So that is enough motivation.
You see, that is what separates citizens from idiots. I'm sorry to use that word. You see, the idiots would rather cleave to all these religious and ethnic cleavages, but the citizen looks at the larger picture. Where would this lead us to? What are the immediate consequences? What are the midterm consequences? And what are the final long-term consequences? The citizen will think beyond his generation. He will think far ahead to the third, fourth, fifth generation.
What do I leave for my children?
What do I leave for my children? What legacy am I leaving behind? That's why till today, the names of people like Ganifa Emi, Franco Kori, they were not billionaires. You know, Paul Modu. Their names still ring bell.
And it is serving their children.
And it's serving their children because they lived selfless life. Of recent, I showed Tafawa Balewa's photograph when he went on a break as prime minister. He sat on the bare floor. The house he was living at that time was inherited from his father as prime minister. Who is that councillor today that is not building high-rise mansion? So what we are saying is that, without digressing too much, we should hold our leaders accountable, particularly the National Assembly leaders, so that they know that we are watching them. Then the CSOs, the labor centers, should do enough of advocacy and mobilization such that when these people, if not for enough mobilization and sensitization during Obasanjo's regime, perhaps Obasanjo will still be ruling today. Because if that third-term agenda had sailed through, you can imagine it will be a life presidential ticket that he will be looking for.
Which is ironical, considering he was the one that ushered us into the civilian regime.
Exactly.
From military.
So what we are saying here is that without ethnic bias, without religious sentiment, let our CSO be at the forefront of agitation to the extent that these National Assembly members will know that power resides within us and not with them. We are only throwing them up because all of us cannot be in the National Assembly. And they are supposed to echo our sentiment on the floor of the House, not party sentiment. Because what played out yesterday was party sentiment.
Yes. And obviously with the ruling
with the
party,
majority,
yeah,
position of the ruling party, there was no way. And that's why they say in democracy, the minority will have their say, but the majority will have their way. And that was what played out perfectly yesterday. And for the first time, when they wanted to suspend Natasha, it was voice vote. But when it came to something that is very delicate and dear to the heart of Nigerians and our nationhood, they decided to use physical count, head count. That's why you have 55 against 15. What would a 15 member do against 55? And that also goes back to the relevance of giving tickets to those who are not your loyal party member.
Yeah.
Labour Party ticket was a free-for-all in the last election just because Obedient and Peter Obi was flying the flag.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, this is just a platform, the way these people are rushing to take your ticket. If Revival had won that ticket, by now you probably would be in the APC.
Which was one of the things Nigerians were clamoring for in the
new electoral
law that
they should make it very
difficult,
stringent,
for people to defect,
for Nigerians, politicians to defect. Not that this one. You see, when they were bringing in the clause that the only ingredient to require to defect from one political party to the other is that if there is crisis and factionalization, for God's sake, who brings about factions? Who brings about crisis?
It's the same politician.
It's the same politician. So you are only teaching them what will make it easier for them.
How to maneuver.
So these are issues. So anything we want to do in this country, the first step is to make sure that we harass, coerce, intimidate these National Assembly members into doing our bidding.
Now, what kind of protest now will it take for the Senate to reverse course? Because it's obvious that the Senate, led by the Senate President Akpabio, is solely doing what the President Tinubu and APC want. And despite the few days of protest, they only came out with semantics, not exactly doing what the people want.
But nothing has changed.
What kind of protest will it take? Because this is turning into another EndSARS situation. But obviously, the EndSARS people, however you want to argument you want to make about it, they did not have support from the larger society. That was a very good opportunity for the labor unions, for other civil society organizations, and other unions, as to trade union, to have supported this youth in the protest. It looks like the same thing is playing out again, because right now it's looking more like an opposition politicians.
You see, we got it wrong. We got it wrong when the likes of Amici, Peter Obi,
entered the
protest. Of course, it was a grievous error that made it look like opposition trying to hijack
instead of
governance.
Instead of actual Nigerians protesting.
Yes. For instance, if civil society organizations and their leaders are the ones coordinating this protest.
And labor unions.
But unfortunately, labor unions are dead.
They are actually.
Their sickness started in 2011. Today, they are in ICU. So, whoever becomes the leader after the current generation of labor leaders determines if they are going to the mortuary or not. So, now, labor unions are in ICU. Civil society organizations, except for the young and upcoming ones, that you cannot really trust, like the veterans of old who have died. Because there is so much inconsistency.
Some of those veterans have even gone into politics.
They have gone into politics. Look at Keyamo today.
Yeah.
Look at Olisa Agbakoba today. Look at Ozehome today.
Even Adam Soshomole.
Adam Soshomole.
I mean, he was the voice of labor and civil society.
Yes.
Then, and then politics took him away from us.
When Oshomole was NLC leader, I was in the trenches with him as a labor correspondent and later on labor editor in the Guardian.
And labor had huge voice.
Yes. Labor was partnering with JAF, Joint Action Front, made up of civil society organizations. And so, if the labor movement sneezes, for God's sake, even the military will catch cold. That was it at that time. Now, let's come back to how we are going to make our voice heard. Let no known politician lead protests, particularly if you are in the opposition. Because even if you have genuine reasons for you to lead that protest, it will be very easy to label that protest as opposition's plan to overthrow government by violent means. And that will also give the security apparatus the right to unleash terror. It can be excused if somebody like Showore is leading protests. It can be excused if somebody like this Peter, that young man that usually wear beret, that reads out statistics in his TikTok and all that. Yeah. If somebody like VDM is leading protests.
Good.
Yes. Now, these are people that are very visible in the social media. And these are people...
But at the same time, those guys will also still be having PTSD from the outcome of NSAS.
They will do what?
They'll still
post-traumatic...
yes, PTSD from the outcome of NSAS. No, because if there's anything, NSAS have made some young people afraid to come out to protest now.
Post-traumatic situation. What about Mandela that spent 27 of his useful years in prison?
We all have different mental capacity.
You see, it's not a matter of mental capacity. You see, what drives people when they find themselves in that... I have a cousin who is a prolific columnist in Nigeria today. And this guy, sometimes when he writes, his articles are published on Sunday. I don't want to give further details so that it will not be narrowed down to him. Yeah. Do you know that sometimes I call him in my closet? I say, this man, you are always giving me goose pimples anytime I read your article on Sunday morning. And I always feel that, are you really safe with the way you write? He said, I am sold to this. I cannot go back. He said, I know that some of you that really love me, your heart jumps when you read what I write. But I can't go back. It is what I have sold myself to. So if these people are genuinely all out to make themselves sacrificial lambs for the growth of this country, they will not think the way you are thinking.
Because, I mean, revolution must be soaked in blood.
You understand? They will not think the way you are thinking. If they are thinking the way you are thinking, that means they are doing that for the optics, for people to invite them to come and chop in future. And then that is not good for such an exercise.
Okay, I wish we can talk more on that, but unfortunately, because of time, let's quickly go to the Dangote story. You've already said a little of it. Now, there are two major opinions as far as Dangote and his gains is concerned. While some Nigerians are applauding him, for some of the positives he's brought, and you highlighted some of them, there are other Nigerians that are afraid of the monopoly, citing genuinely some of the monopoly he has already created in some other aspects, and coming into the oil and gas is going to cause another monopoly. Is it safe to say Dangote now is a two-edged sword with the positives and the negatives.
You see, like you have just laid the premise of positives and negatives. You see, the negatives, which is basically monopoly and which will give rise to exploitation of his customers and other things.
Yeah.
That can be taken care of.
In a country like this?
Yes, that can be taken care of.
Where
And unfortunately, the person that will first be in the ring with him is his brother from the same Kano state, Alhaji Rabiu of Bua. Bua's refinery in your area is nearing completion, 450,000 barrels per day.
But will he be able to compete with an all?
You see, what I'm saying is, at least while others are also springing up. I know there is a particular one that is springing up in around the Ogun State axis, and good enough, Ogun State is going to join oil-producing states very soon. Now, what that tells you is that if Bua is pumping 450,000 and Dangote is pumping 1.4 million, the choice is if 5 marketers are holding or betrothed to Bua and 20 marketers are betrothed to Dangote, it's your choice as a consumer to decide where you want to buy fuel. Today, some people are so used to a particular marketer just because of the branding and the connection with Dangote that if they don't, even if they have to travel 10 kilometers to get their fuel from that particular outlet, they will do. Do you understand?
Yeah, but it's not everyone that will do that.
Not everyone will do that. Now, the question is, if we have somebody else bringing in like 500,000 barrels a day, Bua is 450 barrels, which is also subject to expansion. Dangote started with 650. Now it's going for 1.4. What is the volume of petrol we consume in Nigeria today? It hovers between 45 and 50 million liters a day. Whereas, multiply a barrel, you extract 154 liters from a barrel. So that means 650 times 54, 154. That gives you about 100 million, 100,000 liters per day at full capacity, which means Dangote has surplus of about 50 million thereabouts to push out of the country and in exchange for foreign exchange. That is the simple arithmetic of why Naira is coming down. I mean, it's appreciating against the dollar. Dollar, who is supposed to be in the know and who is in the know, is into banking, is into oil and gas, is into property and all that, said recently. And that's why I take his words seriously anytime he's talking. He told us about 3 or 4 months ago that Dapman is dead. That he was the one that established Dapman when he started building his tank farm. That the game has changed, that tank farms is no longer relevant. And what is happening now? They are struggling. They are struggling, bringing up subterfuge, blackmail and all that against Dangote. But they are not succeeding. Now, it will get to a point that he said before the end of this year, Naira will fall to about 850. I mean, the dollar will fall to about 850. Then, now imagine in the next 3 years, if Dangote sustains 1.4 million, Bua sustains 450, then we'll be net exporter of refined petroleum products. Not just petrol, Jet A1, diesel, urea, fertilizer, propylene for plastic and all that. Then come and tell me. And if Ajaokuta still rolling me that woman, Natasha, is fighting with her blood to make sure it's resuscitated, which they have even signed MOU now. They are doing the audit and they are planning to resuscitate that particular plant. come and tell me, do you need to go to any of these countries where they manufacture cars and machinery before they come to the raw material they need? No. Aluminum smelting plant is there. The components of manufacturing a car is about leather, aluminium, steel. Then rubber. If rubber is resuscitated in the south, what else do we need in this country? What we need is good leadership to propel all of this. So Dangote is taking the initiative from government. We should play down the negatives. Yes, it might impact on us somehow by not getting the right price for the value of what we are getting because of monopoly. But it's going to be a short-term thing. At the long run, that monopoly will be broken. There was a time Dangote wanted to sell his salt, sugar, like Ramadan, like this, for a certain amount. And Bua said, for the sake of his people that are Muslim, that is not going to sell at the rate of Dangote, he brought down the price. Dangote had to come down to his level for him to sell his product. And that's the beauty of plurality. You understand? So let us endure, even if it's going to be monopoly. And at a point, I know that Dangote would always get to a point that, after all, he said he was doing Christmas for us. He reduced the fuel price to appreciable amount. When even the naysayer said by this time we'll be buying fuel for 1,500 a liter.
Which has usually been the situation in Nigeria
and
for years.
The whole of December last year, there was there was glut rather than scarcity of fuel.
Yeah.
So we are taking a leap. If it's going to be the private sector as spearheaded by Dangote, for me today, I give it to Dangote. Because what government couldn't do, Dangote is doing it for us.
Okay, let us end it here, Mr. Fanimo. Thank you very much for your time.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you very much. That's Dele Fanimo, an in-house analyst with years and years of experience in the media space. And for a quick look at what's happening outside Nigeria, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said talks between Ukraine and Russia had brought about meaningful progress to end the war as both sides prepared for a second day of negotiations in Geneva on Wednesday. However, hopes of a breakthrough remain low, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying it was not fair that U.S. President Donald Trump keeps asking his country to compromise, adding that peace wouldn't be achieved if victory is handed to Russia. U.S. President Donald Trump has recently suggested it's up to Ukraine to ensure talks in Switzerland are successful without mentioning Russia. The Kremlin has not wavered on its maximalist demands on Ukrainian territory. Zelensky has repeatedly said his country has been asked to make disproportionate compromises compared to Russia. Russia occupies roughly 20% of Ukraine, including large parts of the eastern Donbas region. The Kremlin wants Ukraine to hand over the rest of the region, which Ukraine has ruled out. Ukraine says robust security guarantees from the West, including the U.S., must come before any settlement with Russia can be agreed. As Zelensky told a website that it is not fair. In a statement on social media on Tuesday evening, top Ukrainian negotiator Umarov said the first day of talks focused on practical issues and the mechanics of possible solutions. In a video addressed shortly afterwards, Zelensky said Ukraine was ready to refrain from carrying out strikes as proposed by the U.S. To both Kyiv and Moscow. Still on the international scene, Australia has barred a citizen linked to the Islamic State IS group from the country for up to 2 years. The person is among the group of 34 Australian women and children who tried to head home after being released from a Syrian camp earlier this week, only to be turned back by Syrian authorities for technical reasons. The ban was issued on advice from security agencies. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke said on Wednesday, and that the other 33 people do not meet required legal thresholds to be banned. Canberra has refused to repatriate the group believed to be made up of the wives, widows, and children of IS fighters. There are 23 children among them. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese stressed that these families will not receive government support to come back to the country. However, legal experts have warned that government has an obligation to allow citizens the right to return. And responding to reports that group has a valid Australian passport, Albanese said his government will not breach Australian law. This group of the Al-Rot camp in northern Syria is among dozens of Australians who have been held in camps and prisons across the country since 2019, when IS was driven from its final foothold in Syria. And after sport news, Real Madrid's 1-0 win at Benfica in the UEFA Champions League was marred by further allegations of abuse aimed at Spanish club's Brazilian international Vinicius Junior. The 25-year-old forward, who has 45 caps for his name and would lead Brazil's attack at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, has been the victim of a series of instances of racist abuse, with 18 legal complaints filed against racist behavior targeting him since 2022. The latest alleged incident followed an exchange with Benfica's Argentinian winger Gianluca Prestigiani in a subsequent row with the home side's manager Jose Mourinho saw Real leave the field of play at the Portuguese club's Estadio da Luz, or the Stadium of Light, for 10 minutes on Tuesday. The match, which was the first leg of the playoff tie between the clubs for a place in the last 16 of the Champions League, had reached the 55th minute when Vinicius and his teammates retreated to their dressing room. Vinicius had just given Real Madrid the lead with a stunning curd effort, but was then booked for an excessive celebration, which Vinicius disputes. The Brazilian was clearly confronted by Prestigiani and at his point, and this is where the controversy began. And now, to end the news, let's take a look at our headlines. Again, Nigerian Senate passes Electoral Act Amendment Bill after clash and stormy debate on electronic transmission. Lent and Ramadan begin today in Nigeria and across the globe. We also brought a story that Peter Obi, Sanwo-Olu, and Khan felicitate Nigerians as Lent and Ramadan begin. And Dangote signs $400 million equipment deal to fast-track refinery expansion. Outside Nigeria, US says meaningful progress made as Ukraine talks enter second day. And in sports, Mourinho and Benfica under fire after Real Madrid's Vinicius alleges racism. And that's the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon FM. Do follow our social media handles at VOP903 FM. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP903 FM. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.